Hello and welcome into Sportszone. I am your host, Alec Rapp, and tonight is where it all begins. Game 1 of the Fall Classic, the MLB World Series between the American League Houston Astros and the National League Atlanta Braves. And joining me now to discuss this series is Sebastian Nava and Amanda Malini. So guys, how are we doing?
Excited.
Doing good, thank you.
Very excited. I am happy that some World Series baseball is finally back. So Amanda, the Astros have been dominant over the past 5 years. They have played some amazing baseball. They are now one of 3 teams. The 91-95 Oakland Athletics did it. The 91-99 Atlanta Braves did it. And now they have done it. They have gone to 5 straight championship series. They've been in 3 of the last 5 World Series. So what has been the key factor in their dominance, and what do you think they can do to keep it up this year?
So I'll address it right now, right? Those first few years, there was the trash cans, there was the cheating. You know, unfortunately, it happens. So getting that out of the way now, this year in particular, with the reintroduction of fans and such in Major League stadiums, you've seen a lot of kind of what's been that chip on their shoulder this whole season. In terms of offense, they have one of the best offenses in baseball. They definitely have the best offense this postseason. And, you know, I really think just the chip on their shoulder has been what's been pushing them through this year and kind of been holding, like, keeping the fire under them these past 5 years.
Now, another team with a chip on their shoulder is the Atlanta Braves. Sebastian, they won 88 games this year. That was the lowest number of wins that any team in the postseason had. They were given a 2% shot to make the World Series at the trade deadline. Since August 1st, they've been 43-21. What does it mean for an Atlanta Braves team that shouldn't be in this World Series? What does it mean that they're actually there?
I mean, it just means that, all the players that they went out and got, all of them are starting to step up. We all saw, Eddie Rosario, win MVP. We saw Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler. Now that they're playing in an AL stadium, you get to add Jorge Soler into that lineup. So I think she says the Astros has been the best. If you look at the numbers, that the Braves have had a higher OPS. When going to away stadiums, they've had like a higher average. When they're behind. So I just think in situations the Braves have been able to come out on top.
Definitely, and this is going to be an exciting series to watch because if you watch the championship for the NL and AL, they were on different sides of the spectrum. The AL, it was all hitting. There were, I believe, 4 grand slams. And in the NL, it was all pitching. Amanda, I want to go to you. The Astros have a really big player who's not going to be playing. That's Lance McCullers, their #1 guy in the rotation. They also have center fielder Jake Myers. He is day-to-day. What does not having Lance McCullers in the rotation mean for the Astros, and who needs to step up?
So not having Lance McCullers in that line or in that pitching rotation is going to be brutal for the Astros. But to be fair, you didn't really see him in the championship series either, so I don't really think it's going to be too much of a loss. I know with Framber Valdez for sure, he's going to need to step up, and Luis Garcia is going to step up. And with both of those guys, they're both so young, you don't quite know which version of them you're going to get, right? We saw Luis Garcia take a knee injury in that first appearance in the championship series, but then he came out and pitched a no-hitter through 5-ish innings in Game 6. Same with Framber. We saw him get rocked in that first appearance in the championship series, but then was absolutely dominant in the second appearance. So he's just going to need to have that dominant appearance again.
Yeah.
Really.
So on the other end of the spectrum, Sebastian, the Braves are missing a key player as well. It's a guy they've been missing since before the trade deadline. That is Ronald Acuna Jr. and, of course, Huáscar Ynoa, their 4th guy in their rotation. Who needs to step up for them?
I mean, well, it's not so much of a stepping up. It's just more of, just a continuing. Obviously we saw, how effective the Braves bullpen was. Brian Snitker, managed to come in and, use Tyler Matzik effectively. We saw in that 7th inning where, he shut down the Dodgers with no outs and runners on 2nd and 3rd. I'm still salty about that. But yeah, it's just a matter of, managing a bullpen and just, making sure that bullpen stays effective.
Managing a bullpen is extremely important in the game of baseball. Very quickly, guys, I want to know who you have winning this series and in how many games, and then your MVP. So Amanda, go ahead.
All right, so I have The Astros in 6. And I'm very, very passionate about the fact that the Astros are going to be in 6, and the MVP is going to be Carlos Correa. It is his time.
And Sebastian?
All right, turn that camera on me. I have right here for the A, Atlanta Braves in 6. Eddie Rosario's lifting that World Series MVP.
Well, guys, stay tuned tonight at 7:09 p.m. as the Braves take on the Houston Astros in Houston. Charlie Morton on the mound for the Braves and Framber Valdez on the mound for the Astros. When we come back, we will be discussing the Mean Green's loss this past weekend to the Liberty Flames. This past weekend, the UNT Mean Green took on the Liberty Flames and lost by a final score of 35-26. The Mean Green are now 1-6 on the year, with their lone win coming their first game against Northwestern State. Joining me now to discuss this game is James Carroll and Parker Smith. So how are we doing, guys?
I'd be doing a lot better if the UNT Mean Green could get a win, but besides that, pretty good.
I definitely agree. The Mean Green need to pick things up. So Parker, I want to start with you. The Mean Green have done something they haven't done all year, and that's play football in the first half.
Yeah.
They were up 20-14 at half. Malik Willis goes down. He comes back, wins the game for the Flames. They score 6 points in the second half. So the big thing is we stuck with Ani the whole game. Is that a guy that we need to continue to stick with? Or do we look a little further down the depth chart or go back to Jace Ruder?
So as far as moving on from those two guys, I don't really think that's going to be an option. But as far as Austin On versus Jace Ruder, I think I'd rather stick with Austin On. He's been in the lineup more than Ruder. We had some success, at least in the first half last week. And I think he's the guy that we need to stick with for at least the rest of the season until we can bring in a new recruit, find a transfer, someone else to take the job, because his upside's definitely limited. He's 28 years old. And as far as bringing us like much further in the future, I don't think that's really going to happen. But as far as this year, yeah, I think he's the guy we need to stick with.
James, do you agree with that, or do you think we need to look elsewhere?
Well, if you saw a few episodes ago, you knew I was a big Jace Ruder fan. I just wanted some new blood in there. For no other reason than, it was new blood. But I think at this point, we just got to stick with Ani. Seeing one quarterback in the stats column for our team, it was really nice. It was a good feeling.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
Yeah, he did have those two really egregious picks.
Yeah.
Not really going to avoid that either way you go. But, I think sticking with him is a smart play for now.
Yeah, I think at this point we did this little dance last year, and we did it at the beginning of this year where we were like, oh, let's go Jason Bean. No, let's go Austin Ani. This year it's let's go with Ruder, let's go with Austin Ani. Mm-hmm. Now I want to talk about a part of the offense that has worked, and that is the run game. Yes. Ayo Adeyi had 16 carries, 99 yards, and a score. DeAndre Torrey, 29 carries, 73 yards, and a score. So that part's working. The pass game hasn't really seemed to work very well this year. Right now, offensive coordinator Mike Bloch is calling the plays. Should he continue to call the plays, or do we need to give it back to Seth Luttrell or somebody else? Parker, what do you think?
I think as far as it is right now, once again, handing it off to another guy midway through the season once we're already 1-6 isn't going to do much for us. I think we should probably stick with Mike Bloch at the moment, but what he does need to do is start to incorporate more play action into the offense. We rushed the ball so much last game. We had almost 250 yards on the ground. So I think it's important that once we're handing the ball off to DeAndre Torrey over and over and over again, we need to start taking some shots down the field on play action.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of bunny hopping off of Parker's thing. I didn't see a single deep shot like that whole game. If you want to, go with like a two-headed monster, attack of Dory and Adeyi, that's fine. Obviously they're good. They racked up 250 yards. But, it won't be nearly as effective, like if you said don't incorporate play action, at least like make them think you're going to pass, take, a shot down the field and have it succeed, keep that in the back of their head for the rest of the time.
Yeah, so you know what they say? They say that the run game opens up the pass game. Exactly. And this weekend, hopefully we'll start doing something a little different with the game plan. We head down to Houston to take on Rice, and prior to this week, I would have said, oh, this is an easy win for the Mean Green, but Rice went into Birmingham, Alabama, took on the UAB Blazers, beat them at home. This is a team that came here and beat us 40-6. James, should we be scared?
You know, I will take the positive approach to this and say we've got 2 running backs that can consistently produce. We've seen that now. You know, Austin Ani, you know, you're going to deal with 2 picks a game. You know, you just got to deal with that at that point. If our defense is the key to this game, I think. If our defense can make Rice's quarterbacks uncomfortable like they did in the first half of this last game, I think we have a real shot, given that we put 2 halves of football together.
Do you agree with that?
As far as winning the game, my hope is, I'd say it's lower than low, but when our defense is able to put pressure on the quarterback, we did have 5 sacks in the first half that game, and that was a big reason why we were leading. If we can continue to get pressure, continue to make plays on the defensive side of the ball, our offense will, I think it kind of gets motivated in a way. It's like, man, they're really working hard for us, getting the ball back to us, and that'll definitely be a key to success against Rice.
So very quickly, guys, if we lose this game Saturday, should we move on from Seth Luttrell, or do we just ride him out the rest of the year? Parker, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we have to ride him out at this point. If we lose this game, we're going to be 1-7. Throwing somebody else into the fire isn't going to do much. And
James, what do you think?
Similar thing. Just ride him out the rest of the season. Look for a fresh page next season.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we're going to look on the bright side of UNT athletics, and that is the men's basketball team. So stay tuned for that. The Mean Green men's basketball team is coming off its best season ever with a Conference USA title, a trip to the Big Dance, and a huge victory in the tournament, its first ever victory in the tournament over Purdue. And joining me to preview this men's basketball season is Sean Smith and AJ Tellers. So guys, as I just said, the Mean Green are coming off a huge year. The fact that we went into Indianapolis, a little bit of a bubble, we beat Purdue as the 13 seed 78-69 in overtime, led by none other than Javion Hamlet. We were phenomenal last year, and I will tell you, it is very easy to have high expectations after a year like last year. Absolutely. Reasonably speaking, Sean, what are your expectations for the team this year?
So one thing that a lot of people want to look at is losing 3 senior starters from last season. Look at that as a sign of, maybe we're going to regress this year. But the way the college basketball landscape is now, you have to retool your roster. With the transfer portal, no one has to sit out a year. And we've done just that. Coach Mack loves his JUCO guys. Tyler Perry was one of the best. He was the best JUCO player in the nation. Hamir Wright played 4 years in the Pac-12. So we got a lot of players ready to come in, step up, play big roles for us, and a lot of our young guys are developing internally as well. So I think we have some pretty high expectations for this season.
Definitely, AJ, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I believe the expectations are absolutely high, but on my end, I think it's reasonable to expect a step back. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because the roof was raised so high last season. But for a team, like you mentioned, losing 3 key starters, for me, not just the impact of Javion Hamlet being your leader in more ways than one, you have an inside presence in Zach Simmons, and your top shot taker in James Reese, you're losing production in terms of just being on the court. I mean, down the stretch, this is a team that lost their last 3 games but went on a run. They ran the table in the Conference USA tournament, and those 3 players alone got to over 2,500 minutes of total time played last season, and that accounts for 45% of your total team share throughout the entire season. So not just the scoring, the rebounds, the production, but you're looking at just the majority of your time on the court taken by those 3 players. There's a lot of shoes that are going to need to be filled this season.
That definitely is, and you mentioned it. I just want to cover those 3 starters. Javion Hamlet, he's now over in Israel playing basketball. Zach Simmons is with the Bristol Flyers in England. And, of course, James Reese transferred back home to South Carolina. Who is one guy that you guys are looking at this year, AJ, I'm going to take it with you, that is really going to make that big step and become, not necessarily like Javion Hamlet, but become the leader of this team?
So in the absence of Hamlet, it really starts with Mardrez McBride and Thomas Bell. I'll start with Bell. Big news last week, named to the preseason All-Conference USA team. So that's a good start. But for a guy paired up with McBride, who were 2 really top options outside of Javion Hamlet, there was a lot of balance in this offense. Yeah. Simmons, McBride, and Reese all averaged 10 points a game behind Hamlet. So without Hamlet, and Simmons down low, you're really thinning out the offense on how this team offensively plays. It's not going to be through Hamlet anymore. It's going to have to go through McBride and Bell. Those two, instead of being secondary guys, they're going to have to be the main offense, at least at what we see right now going into preseason. It's going to be those two guys taking on a much bigger role.
Who do you think is the guy to step up, Sean?
I think the guy who's going to have to step up big is also the biggest player on the court, Abu Usman. He played 8 minutes per game last season, but he's going to have to start for us and play big minutes inside. Zach Simmons was a big interior presence. He really developed into a good low-post scorer, and Abu's going to have to play more of that interior scoring role. I also want to talk about, I think everybody's going to have to step up. And
Definitely.
you talked about we had just a few players scoring a lot of points, but now it's going to have to be a more balanced offense. One thing I'm really excited about is a small ball lineup. I think with Thomas Bell at the 5, I think that has a lot of potential to run some guys off the court from 3.
Definitely, and we have a really tough out-of-conference schedule this year. We had a pretty tough one last year playing West Virginia, Mississippi State, teams like that. This year, we've got Kansas, we've got Buffalo, Nevada, Wichita State, Tulsa, possibly Miami or Dayton, depending on how that Kansas game goes. Do you guys think we can win any of these games? And if so, which one do you think we win?
So I have eyes on that Wichita State game being a AAC preview. But the game I have highlighted that I really want to see is that Nevada Wolfpack game. It's at home in Denton at the Super Pit. This is a program that has made the NCAA tournament 3 times since 2017. That game, middle of the season, is going to be a litmus test to really see how good this team is this year. Don't know if we can win it yet, but it's a game that I would circle to find out what we got here in Denton.
The game I want to focus on is when we dominate Kansas and Florida. UNT is a basketball school, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be an interesting one. Like I said, we went to West Virginia last year on 2 days' notice. Kansas is going to be a fun one. We're playing
Yes,
an
sir.
invitational game. I'm just excited that we're going to be on the national spotlight this year. This isn't something that really we've gotten in the past, and we're finally getting some recognition. Guys, we are just 2 weeks away from Mean Green basketball. But until then, we're going to talk a little bit of NFL football coming up with a new segment called Hot News or Not News. Stay tuned for that. This past weekend, the Dallas Cowboys were on bye, but there is still plenty of football to talk about. And joining me now to talk a little bit of NFL football is Sam Mangan and Jose Moreno. How are we guys doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing as best as I could.
That is awesome. So guys, this is a new segment I like to call Hot News or Not News. And this is how this is going to work. I'm going to give you a headline, and you're simply going to tell me, is it hot news or not news? So let's get started. Sam, I'm going to start with you. Patrick Mahomes has 9 interceptions this year, tied for the most in the NFL. Is that hot news or not news?
That is hot news. From last year to this year, what is going on with him? 9 interceptions already? Not even halfway done with the season.
Definitely. What do you think, Jose?
I think that is kind of hot news, in my honest opinion. Just imagine being the best passing quarterback the league has seen in forever. Just to have 9 interceptions and we're only in week 7, I think Andy Reid's offense is scrambling for answers right now.
I definitely think so. I think, he had 11 in all of 2019 and 2020 combined, 6 interceptions in the last 6 games. I think teams might have finally figured out this Chiefs offense. Guys, the other one, Baker Mayfield has a partially torn labrum. Jose, I'm going to start with you. Is this hot news or not news?
This is hot news, definitely. Honestly, Baker Mayfield is an integral part of that Browns offense, along with all the injuries they have right now. I know for sure because Kareem Hunt is on my fantasy team, and it sucks not having him there. This is a really big hit on them, especially for this team that was doing so great last year and was finally catching fire, just for that Browns bad luck to come back.
Yeah.
Feel awful for them. Praying for you, Baker. Don't die, please.
No, I have to agree with you. With Baker Mayfield injured, who they have to play QB? Who's going to be there?
Case Keenum,
Oh, yeah, that's going to save him.
the greatest Broncos quarterback of all time.
Yep, you got him.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Case Keenum came in against the Broncos Thursday night. Baker was not able to play, won the game 17-14 for the Browns. Next up, Sam Darnold. We're sticking with a quarterback here. Sam Darnold, they start off 3-0. The Carolina Panthers look like the hottest team in football. They've lost the last 4 games straight. They lost 25-3 to the Giants. Sam, is this hot news that he was benched, or is this not news?
Well, I mean, I don't think it really is news. last 4 games lost. What can you expect at this point in time? Like, they gave him his chance, and if they need to bench him and they need to bring him back, then they'll bring him back.
I'm going to say not news. I'm going to agree with them. Not news. I mean, it's Sam Darnold. We all knew he was going to be a bust for the Panthers. And, I mean, he had a first 3-game surprise, just like Fitzpatrick did with Miami that one year when he was just, not with Miami, Tampa Bay. He was doing super great and just, again, we got to remember Sam Darnold still sees ghosts on the field, so he's not going to play the full effect, you know.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little bit of hot news just because the Panthers traded away so much to get Sam Darnold. They thought he was the guy. Clearly, I don't think he is. We're going to stick once again with the quarterback. Deshaun Watson, there's been talk all offseason that this guy is going to be traded. The Houston Texans have not played him yet. I don't think they will play him this season. Is this a guy that's going to get traded? Is this hot news or is this not news?
This isn't news. We all knew this was going to happen. We all knew that once those allegations came up, once the tweets started resurfacing, once this just got really obvious to what's going on, we all just kind of knew that this guy's career is donezo. And honestly, I think he's going to get traded away sooner or later, if not cut altogether. And I think the Texans can take that money loss and just keep going from that, if anything.
No, once again, I agree with you. It's not news. What team will he go to? The Dolphins?
Oh.
What's he going to do there?
Now, I have to ask, the Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa. Do you think they try to make that move for Watson or no?
I think so, yeah. I think that, you know, with how they are, they're very greedy in whatever they'll take. They'll take whatever they can for whatever. They gave Minka Fitzpatrick for a bunch of first-rounders and picks. Although it would be a controversial at first, I think Deshaun, if he were to go to Dolphins, would be incredible. I hate to say it. I don't want to support him at all, but if he were to go to the Dolphins, that would be the final piece they need.
Another one, the Cincinnati Bengals guys have been insane this year. I don't know if you know this. They're number 1 in the AFC North, and they're the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. Is that hot news or is that not news?
That is by far hot news. From the past few years, being at the bottom of their division to now at the top all of a sudden, I did not see that coming at all this year.
I don't think it's news.
Really?
This Bengals team was always ruined by injuries and awful quarterback play. When you finally, I'm going to say this is kind of corny, but I've played with them on Madden. They're not awful.
That's definitely an interesting take. The team right behind them in the standings right now is the Las Vegas Raiders. They are coached by interim head coach Rich Bisaccia. They're 2-0 under him. Is this hot news or is this not news?
I'm once going to say not news. Look at the teams that they beat. The Broncos and the Eagles. I mean, I'm sure anyone could really beat those 2 teams at this point.
I'm going to say it, hot news. Purely because John Gruden's an awful coach. The fact that he had the keys to the entire team and honestly never really took them far. This is a great team regardless. I just didn't think John Gruden had it in him to really coach them above that bump. Derek Carr is a good quarterback. He is starting quality. The fact that Gruden doesn't know how to play him is honestly a big hit on that Raiders offense because that offense was kind of built around Carr. So I think this is great news for great and hot news for the Raiders because I think this coach is 1,000 times better than Gruden. Heck, I'm probably a better coach than Gruden is. I'm glad he's gone.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a bit of hot news because the Raiders, this is their year to win the AFC West. Guys, thank you for listening and watching this episode of Sportszone. Make sure to stay tuned this Thursday at 5:30 for another episode. And make sure also on Instagram and Twitter to follow us at NTT_sports. Make sure to tune in as we get ready to listen to NTTV's Nightly News. Take it away, guys.
The news.